Hello, and welcome to the Vox podcast series, an MMA India Voice and Audio Council initiative powered by IBM. We all know that voice and audio as mediums are intuitive, growing, and sticky with immense potential to innovate. But there are several unanswered questions that come in the way of marketers adopting this medium, and which is precisely why this series is planned. So, today we'll discuss more about voice specifically with a leading player from the domain and deep dive to get more insights, learnings, and understand how marketers are leveraging voice as a medium. With that, let me welcome us our guest for today, Mr. Dilip, to this pod. Dilip is a country manager with Alexa at Amazon. He has been with Amazon for 9 years plus. He was a part of the core team that worked on the Amazon marketplace as well. And he happens to be one of the first few members of the Alexa business in India. He has seen it grow from its inception. So I'm so glad and delighted that we have Dilip here today with us to share how brands and organizations can leverage voice effectively as a potent marketing tool. So, welcome, Dilip. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thanks, Monica. It's really my pleasure to be a part of this podcast series. And it's a great opportunity for me to talk about voice and Alexa to millions of customers and millions of Indians. So happy to be here.
So agree with you. In fact, you've been such an active council member as well at MMA. So we're absolutely thrilled to have you on board to do this discussion. So Dilip, let me get into my first question. As the topic for today is how can brands and organizations leverage voice effectively as a potent marketing tool? So, in light of which, let's start with some basics. Tell me, what are the various ways in which voice is being leveraged by users today, and how big is this space in India as of now?
I think voice is ubiquitous, as we say, right? If you go back to the history of technology, um, about like 2 decades back, people started off with a DOS prompt, having to memorize commands, type in the exact syntax to get anything done from a computer. And
Right,
from there, we
right.
moved to the internet and the World Wide Web, where you could quickly type something out and you could search for information or content across the globe. And
Hmm.
then in the early 2000s, the mobile revolution happened, right? Everything was possible through your fingertips. You could book a cab or order for your food now, all through a simple device in your hand. I think
Correct.
voice is the next step in technology where it makes user life super convenient and all through a voice command, right? And the difference in this technology is still now customers had to learn how to interact with technology. You had to learn to browse, learn to scroll, right? Learn to
Right,
type a certain command. With voice, we
right.
are carving technology to learn how human beings interact naturally, and that's through voice and audio. So we are changing the way technology and human beings interact, and that's why I feel voice is the most natural form of communication, and
Mhm.
that is why I feel right now we're seeing voice being ubiquitous in all kinds of devices, whether it's in your home, in your cars, in your offices, in your mobile phones, wherever you go, voice is going to be an essential part of your day-to-day journey.
So interesting. I so agree. It is intuitive, it is ubiquitous. So, with that, it just brings me to my next question. There are some brands who have had the foresight to jump onto the voice bandwagon much earlier than the others, right? And they have been able to build a very, very strong relationship with their consumers at the back of it. What is your view there? And do you think that this trend is accelerating in India?
No, absolutely. I think if I look at which where voice naturally fits in, right? Voice is there to make customers' lives a lot more convenient, and
Right.
brands who can leverage that piece are the ones who are seeing a natural growth or a hyper growth phase. You can say. I'll give you an example of say smart homes, right? Smart homes in India, there were a few brands who are operating, trying to make users' life convenient by click on a phone app and turn on a light bulb. It still required you
Correct.
to pick up your phone, unlock it, go to the app, and then say on or off, right?
Hmm.
With voice, all you can say, hey, turn on my light bulb, and you're done, right? It's even reduced those easy steps to one step, right? So something like a smart home has seen
Hmm.
tremendous adoption due to voice. I can share some numbers with you, like just in terms of smart home selection. When I say selection, I mean the number of brands who offer smart home voice-based products. It's increased 72% year on year for us. And this is
Wow.
across smart lights, plugs, fans, security cameras, ACs, you name it. Right? And from all leading brands, Xiaomi, OnePlus, Hindware, and the likes. Right?
Got it.
And
Yeah.
just to share some one customer stats, right? Just last year, on a daily basis, we get about 2.6 lakh requests from customers to control a smart home appliance. That's the
Wow.
scale at this stage we're talking about. So you know how
Wow.
big it can get.
Absolutely. And what about the engagement side? So this is definitely a utility set of examples which are very, very interesting and eye-opening. But what about the engagement side, where brands which have got onto the bandwagon to engage consumers using voice as a medium?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I can give you an example of our own Alexa India story, right? And talk about how in the last few years, Alexa in India has made inroads into customers' lives. If you think of it, we're talking about voice in a big way today, but it's just 4 years ago that we actually launched Alexa in India, right? We're already in millions of Indian households, and customers use Hindi, English to talk to
Hmm.
Alexa. We talked about
Hmm.
engagement. Just in 2021, year on year, our number of requests to Alexa have gone up by 68%. That's the kind of growth we are talking in spite of the millions of numbers, right? In last 2 years, we've had a 350% increase in active users, right? Again, a
Hmm.
much higher increase in engagement. And I think it's
Hmm.
all because customers have not found a companion with Alexa, right? They're,
True.
especially in COVID times, last 2 years, Alexa has, they spend a lot more time at home. They've realized the
Yeah.
utility and the functional benefit of a brand like Alexa. And it's not just a metro phenomenon, right? Even in non-metros like Kanpur, Bundi, Gachiroli, you see people buying our device. In fact, 85% of pin codes in India are from where like a lot of our Echo smart speakers are sold. And it's all not just through Echo, right? We have Alexa on the Amazon shopping app, 100 plus other devices, right?
Correct.
Made from other brands, our Alexa, our Amazon Fire TV. So I think it is truly ubiquitous, and we have many customer anecdotes which make our life really satisfying. Like you hear a person listening to a devotional songs, or keeping their kids entertained, or grandparents being able to control their homes with simple voice command. In fact, even in government schools, like I'll give an example. In Madhya Pradesh, there's a place called Bastar. They started using Alexa in government schools, where children are able to interact, learn language skills, math skills,
Fantastic.
right? So for about
Fantastic.
40,000 plus students have benefited with it. So from an engagement
Absolutely.
point of view, it's truly out there.
Hear you. Absolutely. Yeah. Like what I can understand is it's essentially cutting through literacy issues, language issues, age issues, and of course, to some extent, even a specially disabled challenge which may exist. It kind of cuts through it all because of the nature of this platform that it is. So it's not surprising that it is being embraced the manner it is. So that's impressive. You know, Dilip, you would know of this being a council member. Last year, we had released a voice playbook
Mhm.
with the council, and there was a very interesting data point in there. Which said that 82% of smartphone users use voice activated technology. Yeah.
Correct.
And of course, like we all know, voice technology is playing a pivotal role in even fueling conversational commerce today. Right. So, considering the smartphone penetration in India, what do you see as the role of voice technology for businesses with these kind of numbers staring at us?
No, I think it's out there. I'll give an example of our Amazon shopping app. I
Hmm.
just in 2020 we debuted with the Alexa integration on our Amazon shopping app with both English, and eventually next year we had a Hindi support as well. Now almost we get 8.5 lakh queries every day where people are using voice for commerce, right? Finding products, answering product related queries, paying their bills. And in peak seasons like our Great Indian Festive Sale, which is like the Diwali
Hmm.
time, it goes
Hmm.
up to 13 and a half like requests per day, right? And it's not just about the Amazon shopping app, which is on like 100 million plus downloads, but also
Mm-hmm.
in terms of other hands-free phones, right? So we've
Mm-hmm.
integrated with the leading OEM brands like Xiaomi, OnePlus, Oppo, Vivo, and in fact, one in every six phones sold on Amazon last year during the festive period had an Alexa integration. So customers are truly using Alexa even on smartphones to make their lives a lot more convenient.
Right, right. So as the smartphone penetration is growing, what is the estimate? What, according to you or the organization, the growth could look like from your own?
I don't think we speculate on like what the growth could be. Our essential what we look at is what are those use cases customers will truly like to use voice for, right? And our job
Mm-hmm,
is to fulfill those need gaps and saying
mm-hmm.
how can we make sure that no matter what the format is, right? It could be a phone, it could be a smartwatch, it could be an Echo speaker. Are the use cases very relevant to that device format? For example, on a smartwatch, people use it for fitness to track the steps they have walked, right? So our voice based use cases available there, right? We integrated with Boat and like Titan and a bunch of other smartwatch popular smartwatch brands, and we had to build voice first use cases there to ensure you don't have to again click three buttons to get to how many steps. You can just say, Alexa, how many steps have I walked today, right? So our job is to ensure that no matter where the customer is and no matter what they want to do, it's all
Right.
possible through voice.
Interesting. Correct. So what you're saying is it's really becoming a gadget in many gadgets, right?
That's right. That's
And
right.
and therefore there is no one motherhood number that one can really go by, because it's penetrating that in a very diversified manner.
That's right.
Interesting. Absolutely interesting. Okay, now I'm going to ask you something which I'm sure our listeners would also love to understand much more. Uh, basically voice persona today is gaining importance, and
Mhm.
is considered really kind of key when you're looking at a voice strategy. And I remember you guys offered legendary Amitabh Bachchan's voice, right, to ask similar questions that one could ask Alexa, which was for a limited period, of course. And that was a brilliant idea, a brilliant innovation. So tell me, how did that idea occur? Why did you choose to do that? And what is the kind of impact it has had for you guys?
Yeah, I think if I take a if I look at the Amitabh Bachchan example, I'll come to a little later, but I'll talk about
Hmm.
again how technology has evolved or how brands interact with technology, right? Like when
Hmm.
you started off back in the day, you had websites where brands like could communicate a one way, in a one way format, right? Here's my
Right.
content, here's what I want to say, and the customers have to consume it. Then came
Correct.
social media, where it became a two-way conversations. Brand would put something out there, and customers could immediately respond. Suddenly, a brand had to carve its own persona. What did it
Right.
stand for? What language had it to use on social media? What kind of content did it put up? Do I be quirky? Do I be informative? Do I be something else? Right? Then it
Hmm.
comes to voice. It becomes more instantaneous in nature. Suddenly, you need
Hmm.
to think of what does my voice persona look like? How should my
Correct.
voice sound? What is a real-time, fun, delightful experience I can provide to customers? Right? Keeping these principles in mind, when we looked at how can customers enjoy Alexa more, in the
Hmm.
US we had launched a voice with Samuel L. Jackson, right, a very
Hmm.
popular American actor, and
Hmm.
customers' response is really good. We said what
Yeah.
would be the most relevant such voice in India, right? And who better than Mr. Amitabh Bachchan himself, right? He
Hmm.
stands for, he's a very well respected actor. Anybody and everybody in India knows Mr. Bachchan, right? He's got a great stature. And customers absolutely went like, hey, I want to talk to Mr. Bachchan. I want him to be more accessible to me. And I said, that
Correct.
is a great way to get Mr. Bachchan's voice, not just voice, but get Mr. Bachchan's conversation with every single Indian. And that is
True.
the idea with which we launched it. And the
Hmm.
response has been great. But the lead up to that, like I talked about building a persona, right? That was very interesting for us and a great exercise, right? When you start off with
Hmm.
one such persona building, you have to realize how do even small things like how do customers want to address Mr. Bachchan? Do they want to call him Mr. Bachchan? Do they want to call him Amitabh Bachchan? Do you want to call him Amit ji? And eventually, customers spoke to us and said, "Look, he's so well respected. I dare not call him by just his first name, right?" So
Hmm.
they wanted to call him as Amit ji. And hence, we even had to build a new wake word in India where customers had
Hmm.
to say Amit ji to actually wake up the device and speak to him. And then came, when they spoke to him,
Hmm.
they would not probably, they would obviously ask for time and information, the regular Alexa
Hmm.
stuff, but they want to
Yeah.
ask him his personal questions. What's his favorite movie? What dialogues does he like? Which songs does he prefer? Something about his
Correct.
father's poetry. And we had to build in all those responses and had to work with Mr. Bachchan and his team very closely for it. And that was a very interesting journey. And I can say the response has truly been fabulous.
Wow, that's such a lovely story to hear, and that was so well articulated. It gives a sense to a lot of marketers out there who are probably trying to still figure the voice persona for their brand on how one could think. And this is like a pretty much of a benchmark example to really deep dive into. So that's an interesting one, and thanks for sharing. So tell me, you know. Being at like being a leading player, you would have seen several categories in the industry dabbling with voice. So
Mhm.
any specific categories or industry vertical which you feel is really sort of already ahead in terms of the learning curve in voice and adopting it far more than a lot of other verticals are? Would you be able to quote any such vertical and maybe bring it alive with an example?
Sure. I talked about smart home already, so I won't dabble into that. So smart home is one such vertical which really I think has taken on. But
Hmm.
also, if I look at other devices, like automotive is one example, right?
Hmm.
Now today, cars are becoming super smart, right? You can sit in
Hmm.
your car and half the things are controlled by electronics. At some point in stage, I'm sure we don't even have to drive; just sit and it will drive it yourself, right? So
Correct.
we started working with automotive manufacturers, saying, "Hey, how about provide an extra kick of voice in your automotive offerings and make it super convenient for customers?" So the first such launch in India was the Mahindra XUV 700. It's a
Okay.
super highly anticipated launch. Like it's overbooked like crazy, and customers really love the car. And we integrated
Mm-hmm.
Alexa into the car in such a way it's global first, completely offline as well. So even if you're
Mm-hmm.
driving a car, forget asking for music and audiobooks, right? Those are regular stuff which Alexa anyway provides. But you could change your cabin temperature. You could say, pull down the sunroof for me. You could say, open up my windows, right? Those are super
Mm.
localized, super native experiences which customers
Correct.
can, use Alexa for. And similarly, even Maruti launched the Suzuki Connect skill, right? Now, sitting in
Correct.
your home with your Echo device, you can figure out if your car has crossed the speed limit. Has there been a geofence breach? What's the fuel level of your car? What's the battery health? Now that
Mm.
suddenly makes it so much more convenient to take care of your car and be super involved with it, right?
Makes
Instead of
sense.
having to
Yeah.
take it to a mechanic every single time. Right? So that's one other sector. I think apart from that, music has been a category which has really leaned into voice because it is just so much more convenient to use music via voice, right? And so
Mm.
on and so forth. We look at kids content, like kids absolutely love Alexa. They talk to Alexa for hours together for, like, say, audiobooks or stories or even simple rhymes or even just wishing it good night, right? So we work backwards from customers and seeing what could be those use cases which customers really love, and we try and
Mm.
bring those to the forefront.
Absolutely. And that means really customizing and personalizing it for the environment in which the customer is, right?
And making it
So,
very Indian as well, right? Like in India, you would
true.
know, right?
True.
Cricket, devotion,
Yes.
right, are very popular use cases. So we got, like, say, mantras and shlokas by Star Still. We got recipes from like stalwart chefs like Sanjeev Kapoor, right? So
Mm.
when COVID happened, we had to work customer backwards and saying, hey, customers are concerned about where do I get my vaccination, where do I get information about the nearest COVID test centers, right? So we had to work backwards from customers and saying we need Alexa to be able to answer all of this, right? So it's a continuous iterative process, and every day Alexa gets smarter.
Correct. Correct. Wow. Very impressive. So that brings me to, we've spoken a lot about, the application of this feature into various, into various gadgets, into various environments. Let me now maybe bring in the angle which is very, very native to marketing and hardcore marketing. Okay.
Mhm.
So where, today there was a time, and, we've both been in the industry for a long time to be able to relate to this journey where, in the 90s, everyone spoke about an internet strategy, right?
Mhm.
Then in the early 2000, it was about a search strategy, correct, where search is where people were really trying to sort of up their game. And then came in 2010, there came a mobile strategy, right? So we
Mhm.
kind of actually graduated from an internet marketing strategy to a search friendly one to then a mobile one, and now, okay, we are in a phase where we clearly need to be thinking a voice strategy, and some of them are already doing it very, very actively. correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So what would your two bits be for, in terms of those who are starting out, or those who are really trying to build for a robust voice strategy? What are the, how is it that you'd like to guide them, and what is it that you'd suggest?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, I think truly like in Amazon we say, right, work customer backwards and
Hmm,
think of, okay, what is the customer problem you want to solve, right?
hmm,
Is it faster delivery of something? Is it
hmm,
simplifying a complex task? Is it just giving like a brand outreach to your like brand via voice? So figure
hmm,
out what is the purpose that you want to solve with voice, and
hmm,
then start with the design phase, right? Saying if this is the person, this is what a problem I want to solve, and then think of how do I design that, how do I design a solution around it, because unlike a website or a search strategy, right, and I'm even sure in all of those pillars of evolution you had to carve your own strategy out. Same with voice, right? You had to now think of, okay, what does a two-way conversation look like, how does an
right.
open-ended conversation look like, right? And there are enough and more capable agency partners, and that's when we know the industry is evolving, when you know there are agencies who are specialized in voice, agencies who
Hmm,
are able to help brands with this, there are
hmm,
OEMs who are working on voice based products, right? So I
hmm,
would say brand should first think of what problem do they want to solve, think of how should they be designing it, then
hmm,
technologically it's not very complex. So if it is, if there are constraints, then look at what would be the right channel partners or OEM partners that can help you in this journey, and then truly go and execute it, right? And I'll give you an
hmm.
example from the Amazon ecosystem as well, right? I
Yeah.
talked about the shopping app, but even
Yeah.
within Amazon, right? Like for example, we have built an Alexa help desk in our fulfillment centers where we
Okay.
actually pack and ship products. So
Yeah.
it sort of helps the movement of pickers from the inventory area to like the pick and store desk, right? It brought down the idle time of pickers because we one location to another location, contactless. It made a very positive experience for the associates, right? We had another one saying an Alexa pod at Amazon facilities, which I mean, in some of our offices, campus buildings, which are huge, and like employees don't know how to navigate to XYZ area. We had Alexa pod where you could say, how do I get to the kitchenette, or where is the HR center, right? How do I get XYZ letter from somebody, right? It just makes it so much more convenient instead of trying to figure out the system yourself. Similarly, we
Makes
looked at
sense.
recruitment, right? Can we have a
Yeah.
virtual recruitment skill, right? Can you give candidate information about the company? What's the process like? What are the
Hmm,
policies? What are the training resources available? So we're trying to say,
hmm.
how can Alexa disrupt and help in every single part of our business? It did not only be customer facing; it could be employee facing, could be candidate facing, could be to your internal customers as well.
Correct. Correct. So it can be very integral to an overall business transformation strategy, basically.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Yes, interesting, and it's very evident. It's very pervasive in the amount of use cases it can offer. But now, if I mean, in the interest of time, I'll probably just touch upon a few more aspects before we let you go. I'm just going to quickly ask you. So, whilst yes, there are use cases which you outlined very, in a very wholesome manner.
Mhm.
If I were to now specifically call out use cases which you can share, which are essentially brand driven, which where Alexa has enabled customer engagement or a launch or marketing a specific kind of a product, would you be able to share some of those kind of campaigns or use cases?
Yeah, I can share a couple of instances, but more
Hmm.
importantly, I want to look at Alexa as like a marketplace, right? Like today on your phone, you have an app store or a Play Store, and you have like thousands or millions of apps, right? And customers can choose, developers can choose to build what they want to build for certain customer
Hmm.
subsets or like a larger customer base, and customers can choose what kind of apps, what kind of brands they want to interact with. Similarly, we have something called the Alexa Skills Store, where developers can come and build voice applications or skills, as we call them, and serve different kinds of customers no matter where they are, right? So in India, we had like when we started off with 10,000 skills, now we have over 30,000 skills in 4 years. And these are from radio skills, quizzes built by large enterprises. I mean, today, if you want a price of a Bitcoin, there's a skill for it. If you want the weather, there's a skill for it. If you want like to talk to a celebrity or get some Rajnikant dialogue, there's a
Correct.
skill for it, right? And similarly with devices as well, right? Like coming back to our vision of no matter where you are, no matter what you want to do, right, it should be possible through voice. So similarly, there are a lot of OEMs and device manufacturers who are looking at how can I be a differentiator in the space I'm operating it? Like I talked about smartwatches, similarly TVs, right? There is LG, Samsung, a lot of TVs. They said, can voice make my customer's life more convenient? Can customers search for content, play content through voice, right? Laptop manufacturers like HP have gone very big in voice, saying, can I make like simple stuff which I do on my laptop easier through voice, right? So there are many brands who use it for utilitarian functions, but there are also brands like for marketing purposes. Like you said, I'll give an example of Cadbury's. Cadbury's wanted to celebrate the Valentine's Day event, which stood very closely with what their brand stood for. So they built a nice little experience around it. We helped promote it as well on the Alexa ecosystem, and they got a ton of engagement on on just around Valentine's Day and what the brand wanted to communicate. So I think there are enough and more use cases, and the brands just have to figure out what is the problem they want to solve. And I think it's a notion out there.
Fantastic. I think that was an interesting example you just shared, and I'm sure a lot of users would relate to it, listeners would relate to it, because a lot of us have caught it as well. So, with that, I just probably will, request you to share any specific closing remarks or tips that you'd like to share before you sign off with us on, what is the best mantra to be able to use voice effectively and to ensure that you're able to sort of maximize the benefit from it.
Yeah, I think you should look at the advantages of what voice brings. That's a starting point, right? The simplicity of asking for information, simplicity of getting things done, right? And second is the ubiquitous nature of where all it's available, right? Which is across our echo range of products, shopping app, other devices, and say, okay, now there are various things voice could do, could drive reach, could drive engagement, could drive utilitarian functions. So I would say this to brands: look, voice is something which going to make your customers' lives a lot more convenient. You need to work backwards from the customer, like we say in Amazon, and figure, is it a problem you want to solve? Is it an engagement you want to drive? And how best to leverage it? And it should not be treated as a one off thing I do once a year, but something as an
Correct.
always on thing. Today, social media exists as an always on thing. You cannot not do it, you cannot ignore it. I think voice is in a similar thing where customers are interacting with millions of devices, customers are asking for millions of use cases. A brand not being there is a very conspicuous miss, right? So brands need to consider saying, how do I occupy a space in the customer's mind of voice? Where do I come in, and what problem do I solve for customers? And there are already categories like music, smart home, other kinds of content who are already out there. So I would look at brands starting off their journey in a similar fashion as well.
I'm so glad you actually mentioned that. I mean, it is clearly very omnipresent and we are seeing it around us, like all the time. So, and it is absolutely true that we cannot, embark on this journey as a one off journey. You have to be at it, you have to improvise, you have to sort of, keep progressing and building on that platform and not
Absolutely.
treat it as a one off tactical sort of piece in the marketing mix. So that's so true, and I'm so glad you left that as one of your last remarks before we end this conversation. And that's been a very very valuable conversation, some fantastic tips from you, I must say. So I'm hoping with this discussion it has been enlightening for our listeners. I learned a lot for sure, and I'm sure they've also gained immensely from this conversation, and leaving us a lot of food for thought to think about in terms of leveraging voice effectively as a potent vehicle for business. So till we have you back for another conversation. Thank you very much, Dilip. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and hope to see the medium grow at the pace you guys are growing. And let me just leave one small parting comment for my listeners. Voice adoption and implementation is moving at the speed of sound. So the time to build and market for voice is now. So don't miss out on that one. Thank you and goodbye till we meet again.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, everyone. Pleasure talking to you all.